Khartoum. 1973, middle of the goddamn desert and hotter than hell itself. I was running a telecommunications consultant cover. Plausible. Gave me reason to move around, ask questions, meet people. Technical enough that most folks didn't understand what I was supposedly doing anyway. Perfect for intelligence work in a place where everyone watched everyone and nothing moved without somebody knowing about it. The Russians were all over Sudan back then. Advisors, technical specialists, cultural exchange programs, all the usual bullshit covers that intelligence services use when they want to operate in a third world country. The Soviets had been courting the Sudanese government since the late 60s, pouring in military aid, building relationships, establishing presence, standard Cold War playbook. I knew they were watching me. Hell, I was watching them. That's the game. You operate in a denied area. The opposition is logging your movements, building a pattern of life profile, trying to figure out who you really are and what you're really doing. Surveillance and counter-surveillance. Every day, every movement, every contact. But this was different. I first noticed him at the Acropole Hotel bar around 8 o'clock on a Tuesday evening. Greek place. Decent food, better whiskey, expatriate crowd mixed with local businessmen and the occasional government official trying to look cosmopolitan. The kind of place where foreigners naturally congregated because it felt marginally less oppressive than the rest of Khartoum. He was sitting 3 tables away, mid-30s, Slavic features, decent suit that was too heavy for the climate dead giveaway he hadn't been in country long, nursing a drink and reading a newspaper in Russian, not hiding it, not advertising it either, just there. Our eyes met once, brief. He smiled slightly, nodded. I nodded back. Professional courtesy between foreigners in a strange land. Standard social protocol. Nothing remarkable about it except I'd been doing this work long enough to know when someone was positioning themselves in my orbit deliberately. 2 days later, same bar, different table. Closer this time, he was drinking vodka straight, no ice, reading a different newspaper, German this time, which told me something useful. The man had language capability. Multilingual operators are either academics or intelligence professionals. This guy didn't have the soft hands of an academic. Third time, he sat at the bar instead of a table. 1 stool between us, close enough to talk if either of us wanted to initiate. I ordered whiskey. He ordered vodka. We sat there for maybe 20 minutes, neither of us saying a goddamn word, both of us perfectly aware of what was happening. This was the approach phase, the dance. He was giving me time to get comfortable with his presence before making contact. Standard recruitment, tradecraft. You don't rush these things. You let the target adjust to seeing you, establish a pattern, become predictable and unthreatening before you make your move. Finally, he spoke English. Slight accent, but excellent grammar. The heat here is unforgiving. Simple opening, neutral topic, safe, builds character, I said. He smiled. Or kills you. One or the other. Haven't died yet. Then you must have considerable character. We talked about the weather for another 5 minutes. Surface level conversation, feeling each other out, testing language skills, reading body language, establishing baseline communication, all the preliminary work that happens before any substantive discussion. His name was Dmitry, last name unpronounceable, something Polish or Ukrainian. He said he was a cultural attaché with the Soviet embassy, which meant he was either KGB or GRU, possibly both. Cultural attachés are never cultural attachés. That's intelligence cover work going back to before World War II. I told him my name was William, telecommunications consultant, working on contract for a European firm assessing regional infrastructure needs. Plausible. Boring. Exactly the kind of technical specialist that operated in developing countries during the 70s without attracting too much attention. We talked for maybe 45 minutes that first night. Nothing operational, nothing sensitive. Just 2 foreigners in a hard environment sharing a drink and complaining about the food, the heat, and the bureaucracy, building rapport, establishing connection. But I knew what this was. I'd seen recruitment approaches before. I'd conducted recruitment approaches. This was textbook. He was evaluating me, building a relationship, establishing trust before moving to the next phase. The question wasn't whether he was running an operation. The question was how far he'd take it and what I'd do when he made his pitch. Over the next 6 weeks, Dimitri and I became what you might call acquaintances, not friends. In our line of work, you don't have friends. You have contacts, sources, and targets. But we developed a pattern. Meet at the Acropole maybe twice a week, sometimes 3 times, share a drink, talk about nothing consequential, weather, food, the incompetence of local officials, the challenges of working in Sudan. He was good, real good. Never pushed, never asked direct questions about my work, never tried to steer conversations toward anything operational, just friendly, personable, the kind of guy you'd enjoy having a beer with if you weren't both intelligence professionals dancing around each other. But I was logging everything, every meeting, every topic of conversation, every casual question that seemed innocent but was actually a probe, where I'd been that week, who I'd met with, what projects I was working on, all phrased as friendly small talk. But I knew he was building a profile, mapping my network, identifying my vulnerabilities. Around the 5th week, he started shifting the dynamic, subtle at first. He'd mentioned frustrations with his own government, bureaucratic inefficiency, corruption in the Soviet system, the gap between communist ideals and Soviet reality, testing my reaction, seeing if I'd sympathize, engage, maybe reveal my own frustrations with American policy. I played it neutral, acknowledged that all governments had problems, agreed that bureaucracy was universally frustrating, didn't bite on the ideological bait, didn't defend America and didn't criticize it, just maintained the role of a technical contractor who had no particular political allegiances and was mostly focused on getting paid and staying alive. One night, maybe 7 o'clock early by Khartoum standards, he bought me dinner, lamb kebabs and rice at a decent restaurant near the hotel. We were halfway through the meal when he said something that confirmed what I'd already known for weeks. "William, I think you and I understand each other." I kept eating. "How's that?" "We both work in fields that require discretion, awareness, the ability to read situations and people." There it was. Not quite an admission, but close enough. He was acknowledging that we both knew what the other really was. Moving from the pretense of casual acquaintances to something more honest, more direct. "Discretion's important in telecommunications work," I said. "A lot of sensitive infrastructure information." He smiled, nodded slowly. "Of course, infrastructure." We finished dinner without pushing further, but the game had changed. We'd moved from the cultivation phase to what I call the testing phase. He was going to start probing harder now, pushing boundaries, seeing how I'd react to more aggressive approaches. 2 weeks later, he introduced me to another man, Victor, older, maybe 50, heavy-set, spoke worse English but carried himself with more authority. Victor was the handler. Dimitri was the access agent, the friendly face who made the initial contact. Victor was the operational professional who'd actually run me if I agreed to work for them. We met at a cafe outside the main expatriate area. More isolated, less chance of running into Western intelligence personnel or friendly surveillance. Victor got straight to business. "Dimitri tells me you're a practical man, William. A professional. I try to be. We appreciate professionalism. The Soviet Union values men who understand that loyalty to abstract concepts is less important than loyalty to tangible benefits." I sipped my coffee. Didn't respond. Let him talk. "Your government doesn't pay you what you're worth. Neither does your contracting firm. You have skills, knowledge, access. These things have value, real value, not the pittance some bureaucrat in Washington decided was appropriate." Here it comes, I thought. The money pitch, classic recruitment approach, appeal to financial motivation first. If that doesn't work, move to ideology. If that doesn't work, try blackmail or coercion. But always start with money because money's simple and most people respond to it. We could ensure you're compensated appropriately for your expertise, Victor continued. Information about American technical capabilities in the region, infrastructure assessments, personnel movements. Nothing that would endanger anyone. Just information that helps us understand the regional situation better. I let the silence hang for maybe 30 seconds, long enough to make them think I was actually considering it. Then I leaned back in my chair. That's a hell of an offer, Victor. Real generous. But I'm going to need to think about it. He nodded. Expected that. Nobody accepts a recruitment pitch on the first formal offer. Of course. Take your time. But not too much time. Opportunities like this don't remain available indefinitely. We parted ways. I walked back to my apartment through the dusty Khartoum streets, sun setting over the Nile, heat finally breaking into something almost tolerable, and I started planning my next moves. I reported the recruitment attempt immediately. Sent a coded message through our communications protocol that night, detailed everything, initial contact, cultivation period, the formal pitch from Victor, the whole goddamn sequence. The response came back within 48 hours. Short message, 4 words, play them. Report everything. Perfect. Exactly what I wanted to hear. See, here's the thing about being targeted for recruitment. It's an intelligence opportunity. The Soviets thought they were running an operation against me. What they didn't realize was that I was about to run a counterintelligence operation against them. Every meeting, every question they asked, every detail they wanted, all of it would tell us what the KGB was interested in, what they already knew, and what gaps they were trying to fill in their intelligence picture of U.S. operations in Sudan. I met Dmitry 3 days later, told him I was interested in Victor's proposal, wanted to discuss terms. He seemed pleased, relieved even. His operation was progressing. He'd successfully recruited an American intelligence asset, career-building stuff for a young KGB officer. They set up another meeting with Victor. Different location this time. A house in a residential neighborhood, more secure, more private, the kind of place where they could have a substantive operational discussion without worrying about surveillance. Victor was all business. He laid out what they wanted, detailed information about American communications infrastructure in Sudan, personnel rosters from the embassy, information about CIA presence in country, technical specifications for equipment we were using, movement schedules for American officials, the full shopping list of standard counterintelligence requirements. And what would I get? $5,000 a month, paid in cash, Swiss bank account if I preferred, plus bonuses for particularly valuable information, protection if anything went sideways. Possible relocation to a Soviet-friendly country if my cover got blown. $5,000 a month was serious money in the 70s. Real compensation. They weren't lowballing me. They wanted me committed and they were willing to pay for it. I told Victor I needed operational security guarantees, communication protocols, dead drops instead of personal meetings when possible, limits on what information they could ask for. I wasn't going to provide anything that would get American personnel killed. That part was genuine. Even in a false flag operation, I wasn't about to give them anything that could actually damage U.S. interests or endanger lives. Victor agreed to everything. We established a dead drop location, a loose brick in a wall near the market district, signal site using chalk marks on a telephone pole, simple, effective, hard to detect without dedicated surveillance. We set up a communication schedule every 2 weeks initially, more frequent if circumstances required. Then came the tricky part. They wanted a bona fide proof that I had access to valuable information, something I could provide right now to demonstrate my usefulness and commitment. I'd prepared for this, had a package ready, low-level stuff that wouldn't compromise anything important but would look valuable to the KGB. Organizational chart from the embassy with some names and titles, all public information or harmless administrative personnel. technical specifications for commercial-grade communications equipment that we'd already moved away from. Movement schedule for a mid-level economic officer who didn't handle anything sensitive, enough to seem useful without actually giving them anything worth a damn. Victor reviewed the material, nodded approval, slid an envelope across the table, $5,000 in American $100 bills, my first payment. Welcome to a more profitable arrangement, William. We look forward to a long and mutually beneficial relationship. I took the money, shook his hand, walked out of that house knowing I'd just stepped into the most dangerous game in intelligence work, playing a double, running a false flag operation against a hostile service that would kill me without hesitation if they discovered what I was really doing. For the next 4 months, I fed the KGB carefully constructed information, nothing real, nothing that could hurt American interests. But everything had to seem real enough that they'd believe I was a legitimate source. That's the art of running a false flag. You can't just give them garbage. They'll spot it immediately and either cut you loose or worse, flip the operation and start feeding you disinformation. The information has to be plausible. It has to fit with what they already know. It has to seem valuable enough to justify the money they're paying you. My CIA handlers and I would meet every week in secure locations around Khartoum. We'd plan what information to pass next, how to structure it, what questions to ask Victor that would reveal Soviet intelligence priorities. Every dead drop I made for the KGB was monitored by our team. Every meeting was documented. Every question they asked was analyzed for intelligence value. And the Soviets were asking a lot of questions. They wanted to know about American reconnaissance operations along the Sudanese-Ethiopian border. They wanted details about CIA relationships with opposition groups in Sudan. They wanted information about our signals intelligence capabilities, what we could intercept, how we processed it, where our collection sites were located. All of it told us exactly what the KGB was worried about, where they had gaps, what operations they were running that they were afraid we'd detect. It was a goddamn intelligence goldmine. But playing both sides is exhausting, mentally draining. You have to remember every lie, every piece of information you've provided, every detail of your cover story. Because if you slip once, if you tell Victor something that contradicts what you said 3 weeks earlier, the whole operation collapses and you end up dead in the Nile with a bullet in your head. I met Victor maybe once a month for in-person operational discussions. Dmitri, I'd see more regularly. He was still the friendly face, the relationship manager. We'd have drinks, talk about life. He'd ask casual questions about my work, my contacts, my activities. All of it intelligence gathering disguised as friendship. One night at the Acropole, around 9 o'clock, the place was crowded with the usual expatriate crowd. Dmitri got a little drunk, started talking about his career, how important this operation was to him, how recruiting a productive American source could make his entire career open doors back in Moscow, get him promoted to more significant postings. I felt almost bad for him. He was genuinely excited, proud of his work, thought he'd accomplished something significant, didn't realize he was being played, that the source he was so proud of recruiting was feeding him carefully constructed nonsense while documenting every aspect of his operation. But that's intelligence work. It's manipulation, deception, using people's ambitions and desires against them. You can't afford sentiment in this business. Dmitri was a professional intelligence officer working for a hostile power. If our positions were reversed, he'd have run the same game against me without hesitation. Around the 5th month, things got complicated. Victor started pushing for more sensitive information. He wanted details about CIA personnel that I couldn't provide without actually compromising operational security. He wanted technical specifications for equipment we were genuinely using. He wanted information about American reconnaissance missions that were actually happening. We'd reached the limit of what I could give them without causing real damage. The false flag operation was running into its natural constraints. Either I'd have to provide genuinely valuable intelligence, which wasn't happening, or I'd have to find a way to end the relationship without getting killed. My handlers and I discussed options. We could ghost them, just disappear, leave Sudan, break off contact. But that would tip them off that I'd been running them all along. Better if they thought the relationship ended for natural reasons. Personal crisis, family emergency, something plausible. We decided to manufacture a problem. I'd tell Victor that the embassy security officer had started asking questions, that there was internal concern about a possible leak, that I needed to back off for a while until things cooled down. Plausible deniability. Gave them a reason to pause the operation without admitting I'd been playing them. I met Victor at our usual spot, the house in the residential neighborhood, 10 o'clock at night, dark, isolated. I told him about the security concerns, said I couldn't risk any contact for at least 6 months, maybe longer. He didn't like it, pushed back, said the information was too valuable to interrupt, suggested alternate communication methods, offered more money, tried everything to keep the operation going, but I held firm, told him it was too dangerous, that I valued my life more than the money, that I'd reestablish contact when things settled down, but for now I had to go dark. He accepted it, didn't have much choice. You can't force a source to operate if they're genuinely spooked about security. Push too hard and they'll panic, make mistakes, get caught. Better to let them pause and hope they'll re-engage later. We shook hands. He gave me a contact protocol for reinitiating communication when I was ready. Told me to be careful, to stay alert, to remember that our arrangement was mutually beneficial and worth preserving. I walked out of that house for the last time knowing I'd never contact him again. The operation was over. We'd milked it for everything it was worth. Time to shut it down before it got dangerous. I left Sudan 6 weeks later. Legitimate rotation, pre-planned departure that had nothing to do with the KGB operation but gave me clean separation from Victor and Dmitry. By the time they realized I wasn't coming back, I'd be somewhere else entirely, working a different operation under a different cover. Did they ever figure out they'd been played? Maybe, maybe not. Intelligence services don't advertise their failures. If the KGB eventually realized I'd been running a false flag against them, they kept it quiet. No point admitting they'd wasted resources and operational energy on a controlled source who'd been feeding them garbage for months. As for me, I wrote up the entire operation in detailed reports. Every meeting, every piece of information exchanged, every question they'd asked, and what it revealed about Soviet intelligence priorities. All of it went into the intelligence reporting system and helped shape our understanding of KGB operations in Africa during the mid-70s. That recruitment attempt taught me something important about this work. When the opposition targets you, they're giving you a gift. They're opening a window into their operations, their priorities, their methods. Your job isn't to panic or run. Your job is to exploit that window for everything it's worth. But you've got to be smart about it. Playing a hostile intelligence service is like walking a tightrope over a pit of goddamn snakes. One mistake and you're done. You have to maintain perfect operational discipline. You have to remember every detail of your cover story. You have to balance what you give them against what you're learning from them. And you have to know when to shut it down before it gets deadly. I've been approached by hostile services maybe 4 times in my career. Each time, I ran the same playbook, reported immediately, get authorization to play them, feed them enough to keep them interested without compromising anything real, document everything, extract intelligence value, shut it down before it becomes dangerous. Not everyone can handle that kind of operation. It requires discipline, mental toughness, the ability to lie convincingly while maintaining situational awareness. You're operating in a denied area, running an unauthorized double-agent operation, deceiving a hostile intelligence service that will kill you if they discover what you're doing. That's pressure, real pressure, the kind that breaks people if they're not built for it. But if you can handle it, if you've got the mental discipline and the operational tradecraft and the sheer nerve to pull it off, these recruitment attempts become some of the most valuable intelligence opportunities you'll ever get. Let me tell you what that whole operation really came down to. Simple principle. Never quit. Never back down. Never let the opposition think they've got you cornered. When Victor made that recruitment pitch in Khartoum, I could have panicked. I could have reported it and run. Could have played it safe, extracted from Sudan, ended my operational deployment early because things got complicated. That's what a lot of guys would have done. Get targeted by the KGB and decide the smart move is to disappear before things escalate. But that's quitting. That's letting the opposition dictate your operational tempo. That's giving them control of the situation because you're too goddamn scared to turn the tables and run them instead. I didn't quit. I saw an opportunity and I took it. Turned a threat into an asset. Converted a recruitment attempt into a 4-month counterintelligence operation that produced valuable reporting on Soviet intelligence priorities and methods. That's what's separating warriors from everybody else, the willingness to engage instead of retreat when things get hard. Never quit, never quit, never quit. That's the principle I've operated under my entire career. When you're 65 years old and the agency wants to push you into retirement, you don't quit. When you're 70 and everybody thinks you're too old for operational work, you don't quit. When hostile intelligence services try to recruit you or kill you or compromise you, you don't quit. You adapt, you exploit, you turn the situation to your advantage, and you keep pushing forward until the mission's complete. Physical fitness plays into this. You think I could have operated effectively in Khartoum, meeting Victor at night in isolated locations, walking through hostile neighborhoods to service dead drops, maintaining operational security in a denied area if I wasn't in peak physical condition? Hell no. You got to be fit enough to handle the stress, the heat, the physical demands of clandestine operations in hard environments. Weakness gets you killed or compromised. Fitness gives you options. And volunteer for everything. When the opportunity came to deploy to Sudan, half the guys in my unit turned it down. Too hot, too dangerous, too isolated, too far from family. All the reasons people say no to hard assignments. I said yes. Volunteered immediately. And that deployment turned into one of the most productive intelligence operations I've ever run. You never know what assignment's going to turn into something significant. So you say yes to everything and you figure it out as you go. That recruitment attempt in Khartoum wasn't just an intelligence operation. It was a test of everything I believed about this work, about never backing down, about exploiting opportunities instead of avoiding risk, about maintaining discipline under pressure, about staying in the fight even when things get complicated. I passed that test, ran a successful operation against a hostile service, produced valuable intelligence, came home clean. That's what separates professionals from amateurs in this business, the ability to handle complexity, maintain discipline, and execute effectively even when the opposition's breathing down your neck. So here's what you need to understand about intelligence work, about this whole profession, about the life you choose when you decide to operate in denied areas against hostile powers. You will be targeted. The opposition will try to recruit you. They'll offer you money. They'll appeal to your grievances. They'll try blackmail if they can find leverage. They'll use every tool in the operational playbook to flip you, compromise you, or eliminate you. Your job is simple. Don't panic. Don't run. Turn the situation to your advantage. Report it. Get authorization. Play them. Extract intelligence value. Document everything. Shut it down before it becomes deadly. That's professionalism. That's operational discipline. That's the difference between intelligence officers who produce results and intelligence officers who get chewed up by the opposition and spit out. And remember this, when hostile services target you, they're paying you a compliment. They've identified you as someone valuable enough to recruit, someone with access, someone worth the operational investment. Take that assessment and use it against them. Make them regret targeting you. Make them waste resources on an operation that produces nothing but false intelligence and valuable counterintelligence reporting for your side. Never quit. Stay fit. Volunteer for hard assignments. Maintain discipline under pressure. Turn threats into opportunities. That's the path. That's how you survive and thrive in this business for 40 years instead of washing out after your first hard deployment. I've been doing this work since the 60s. Still doing it now. Still operational. Still productive. Why? Because I never quit. Because I stayed fit. Because I volunteered for everything, including assignments that scared the shit out of everybody else. Because when the opposition came for me, I didn't run. I turned it around and ran them instead. That's what it takes. That's the standard. Live up to it or find different work. Now get out there and be dangerous.